Superman and Lois, Season 3. This is the full spoiler review. I have a review on my blog, soundedbettermyhead.com. It does get a little spoilery in there, but I try not to go too nuts with it. It's always hard talking about an entire season of a show and not getting too many spoilers in there. I ended up giving this season a 3.5 out of 5. I thought the family stuff, as always, was fantastic. I thought the big bad stuff wasn't as strong as previous seasons, and then especially once you got to the end and they flipped it and we got a new big bad for the final 2 episodes. The main plot of this season was really more about Lois's battle with cancer. We found out pretty early on Lois had breast cancer, so a lot of the season was her dealing with that. It was done very realistically. I mean, I've never had cancer. I haven't had to live with anyone that had cancer, but as best I could tell, this was all legitimate, issues that people got to deal with when they have cancer. I worried a lot that they were going to come up with like a magic solution, like she was going to die and they had to use Kryptonian tech or maybe something that Mannheim developed, and I thought that would be a massive cop-out, so I'm glad they didn't do that. That left Superman this season to more or less be just a cheerleader for Lois. He did get some action scenes. They threw in some fights here and there. I believe there was one episode he doesn't even become Superman at all. Like, he's just Clark the whole episode. And to be honest, it's like I didn't really even notice. It wasn't even dawned on me until afterwards. Like, oh, you know what? He didn't even suit up. Just because, like I said, the drama stuff's so well done. I've come to like these characters so much. So Superman, again, I still love the actor, the job the actor does. I love his portrayal of Superman. I love the couple, Superman and Lois. I think it might be the best interpretation of them as a couple. So, like I said, not diminishing how well he acted or played the role this season, but the Superman stuff was a little light for the most part. Jordan seemed to get the bulk of the other major storylines, and it's just the same shit over and over with him. It's like, okay, you're starting to get powers, you want to be a hero, but your dad's like, you can't do it. And then he kind of proves himself, then he moves up a little bit in the ladder close to being a superhero, then he gets knocked back down, then he's with Sarah, then they're not friends anymore, and they're friends. It's just, and this has been going on since season 1. This is 3 seasons of especially the Jordan Sarah thing. This shows, and they might finally, thankfully, be moving on from this, but it's like you either got to make them a couple or just call it a quits, because it's back and forth, and he's being a little whiny douche about it. It's like, dude, all right, pick a lane and stick in it at this point. It's just too much back and forth. And again, like every time you think, all right, they're finally gonna make him a superhero, he even got his middle mediocre costume. It's like, no, never mind. He's not allowed to be a hero right now because he's been being an idiot. And that's fine, but this has been 3 seasons of him, and it still works with his character, but it's kind of like, all right, enough is enough at this point. We got a brand new Jonathan this season. The actor has a pretty major similarity in appearance to the last actor, so it's not too jarring seeing this new kid like supposed to be like the brother and the son. He didn't get a ton to do. They were kind of working still with his relationship thing, and that just kind of like suddenly fizzled out. It's like, all right, he got beef with her dad, and then she left town, and that was it for her. And then they tried to have him at the fire station, where I thought could maybe lead towards something, but it really didn't. It was just basically busy work. It's like, okay, we took him off the football team, so now he's got to do something else, and it just never felt like that fireman thing amounted to anything. They made Lana Lang the mayor, and I honestly don't think it really added that much to her character. She was always kind of like a semi-prominent citizen. I don't think being a mayor did anything else for her except for her saying, "Oh, I'm really busy right now." That kind of leads into John Henry Irons. It was set up last season like the whole Intergang thing was going to be like a big deal for his character because Intergang killed, that Earth's version of him. So it's like, okay, this is semi-personal. This is gonna be his big thing this season. And first of all, Lois and Clark keep him out of the loop completely the first few episodes. Then he's kind of let in. He does deal with it briefly, and it's just not his problem anymore going into the end. I mean, yeah, occasionally, but for the most part, it's on Superman and Lois to deal with this. So he didn't even get that, Intergang story they were kind of teeing up for him. And then they teased almost all season, like maybe something with him and Lana being like a couple. And they finally pulled the trigger, like in the season finale. But it's like, where do you go from here? Especially after the announcement that, aside from basically the immediate Kent family, none of the other characters are going to be part of the main cast. I mean, they're supposed to try to make appearances depending on who's available and who's willing. But you could potentially not see Lana or John Henry next season. So it's like, I don't know where you go with that. They did kind of hint at, they kind of set some things up with some of the characters where they have an out to what happens to them, like John Henry and Nat moving to Metropolis. Looked like it was going to happen, so I guess that's where they go next season if they don't want to use them. Nat didn't get a ton to do. I mean, she had a nice little story about her first crush, basically, which was cool. I think they fell in love a little quickly. But if she didn't get really any superhero stuff, she built herself this nice fancy superhero suit, and I think she wore it maybe twice. I don't think she got into any action scenes, like legit, any big action scenes at least. They started to work on this little storyline where she teamed up with Sam Lane, who's her grandfather on her Earth. I thought maybe that was going to be kind of an interesting pairing, but they dropped that immediately. I did see that it was nice things she did form like a nice little bond with Sarah. I thought that was I think they had a nice little chemistry as friends. Sam really didn't have a lot to do. They kind of hinted at this, trying to get him getting back in the field for dating. I don't know if that was strictly to set up the finale where he got dicked over, or that was something else they were just giving him to do. And you had Kyle and Chrissy as a couple. That was fine. They were a cute couple. Again, I don't know. It was almost on there just to be like a roadblock for like Lana and kind of give everybody something to do. And with her being pregnant again, it sets up opportunities to take them out of the show next season. The cast, they added Bruno Mannheim to the main cast this season, and he was an interesting character. I mean, for the most part, you saw more of just Bruno instead of like inner gang. It didn't feel like there was this inner gang of bad guys that are, trouble. It's just like this guy's trouble, and he's got some underlings. He was more or less like kind of a kingpin, kind of a untouchable. He's got a lot of money and sway. But they really did a good job of making him a sympathetic villain. He's got a wife, even though she's a mass murderer. She's dying of cancer. He truly loves her, and she loves him. They got a kid, so they did a great job of like making you feel bad for him. And there's a lot of points where it's like, you get, especially later in the season, it's like, all right, Superman's got to stop Mannheim before he cures cancer. Wait, what? So I think what that was missing is, number one, I think we needed to really see how much bad shit he supposedly did to make Lois think this guy's got to be taken down. Because, he did some shady stuff in the season, but it never felt like this is a, massive villain that's got to be behind bars. And the other element, I would like to see, did everything he do that was evil, was it all for the greater good, for helping his community and helping his wife, or was he actually doing some shit just for his own, pleasure? They wish they could have gotten into that a little bit more. And then they end up dropping the whole thing got wrapped up with 2 episodes left. And they suddenly bring in Lex Luthor, and it just felt rushed. It's like, you gotta introduce a brand new Lex Luthor to this universe. We've never seen this version before. A lot of it was a flashback, trying to show how he operates. It did not feel like any version of Lex we've seen before. Lex is usually kind of suave. He's got the nice suits. He's got a lot of money. He's one of the smartest men in the world. He's usually like 3 steps ahead of everybody. He's not necessarily much of a fighter. He'll throw on a power suit once in a while, but that's the gist of Lex Luthor. We're here. He's more of a tough guy. I mean, he's wearing leather denim jackets, and he's dressed like a little bit more like a biker. They got like a heavy metal soundtrack every time you see him. He's rich and he's clever, but it didn't feel like he's a genius. He's not making crazy tech that's like, he could use to conquer Superman. This didn't feel like the Lex I would expect. Not that the acting was bad. He did a great job of this frustrated, angry Lex, but it just didn't feel like Luthor to me. He felt more like almost like the Kingpin. If he just would have got his hands dirty a little bit more. The show still looks great. I mean, there's some really good action sequences. They did kind of a lot of stuff at night to kind of like cheat a little bit, but the CGI is still the best they've done on the CW shows. And this is the last of the CW shows at this point, but it always looks great. Hopefully with the budget cuts next season, we don't lose out on some of that. There's still a couple wonky moments, but overall looked good. I thought, I don't know, I thought Doomsday was kind of a mixed bag. And that's another interesting twist I didn't really get into. is, the dead inverse Superman is now Doomsday. I did kind of dig that last season they teased Doomsday, and then they revealed that it was actually their version of Bizarro Superman, and now he actually has finally come full circle and become Doomsday. And also thought that in the first season they teased that Lex Luthor was going to be a made bad guy, and it turned out to be John Henry. And then finally, late in the game, we do get the real Lex Luthor. I said I don't know how I feel about that, because the Bizarro thing, because he was just Superman from another universe, and he had his issues, but he was a good dude, and he died, and now he's evil. Like, I don't know if it's because he was dead that he's become like just like a monster. Like, it was a little weird the way they did it. Like, I don't know if he can be reasoned with, because Luthor got into his head, and he was able to like kind of talk his version of sense into him. So I don't know if Superman can talk him down at this point. They left on a pretty massive cliffhanger with those two about to go at it. Although, for some reason, their fight scenes remind me a lot of the Hulk vs. Abomination in that Incredible Hulk movie. But, matter of fact, that felt more like a mid-season finale, where it's like, you got a bad guy, main bad guy most of the time, suddenly you switch to a new bad guy, and there's a big cliffhanger, fight sequence, and then it seems like you'd come back in a couple months and wrap it up. But with the writer's strike and with possibly an actor's strike, who knows when we're going to see the final season, or I don't know if it's going to be a final season, but the next season of Superman and Lois. But I think that's it for the main show in general. Before I grab my notes and see if there's anything else I think that I should bring up or mention. Thought it was a little weird that it was only like a couple weeks since the previous season, especially because in the final episode they jumped like a month. So it's like it was a pretty short amount of time kind of passed between the last season, and then all of a sudden there was a big jump at the end. But it was cool seeing that Jonathan was getting better with his powers. It was kind of a horny season of Superman and Lois. Like, her and Clark were kind of getting pretty frisky early on, and then later on too, and then John Henry and Lana, when they finally hooked up. And like they said, they don't turn the camera away too quickly. They let them make out for a little while. So it just kind of helps it feel a little bit more like real people. But it's just an observation, not complaining or anything. Kind of didn't buy the mislead that Lois was pregnant. I just had a feeling it was going to be something bad. I don't know if I heard anything about any type of a cancer storyline, but for some reason that's where my mind went. You get into the second episode. Was it Pia? Mannheim's wife. They were really vague about what her powers were. Like, no one ever laid out flatly what she could do. You just kind of had to interpret from what she was doing. The gist that I got was that she could make certain sounds, and when she did it, whatever that sound was could happen for real. Like, if she made a machine gun sound effect, like, you would get shot by like machine gun even though there was no real bullets. Like, it was never properly explained, and she was only, I think, very, very loosely based on like a comic book villain. Luckily they didn't wait too long with Lois revealing her cancer, because for a minute she was kind of keeping it a secret. Great job of when they did that reveal episode, everybody finding out that she had it. Pretty weird, like Jonathan's girlfriend's dad was, I don't know how this guy was not in prison. I mean, he's pulling guns on people. He's willing to go ahead and punch a teenager in the face, like, especially in a small town like Smallville. It's like, hey, this guy's a criminal and a child abuser basically, but he was stayed out of trouble until Clark threatened him. And then we got 4 episodes in before like John Henry even got looped into the whole Mannheim thing, which, like I said, I thought that was his storyline. And it's like, oh yeah, 4 episodes in, it's like, oh yeah, we were investigating this without you. I did like the scene with Clark confronting the douchebag dad, especially like kind of weird, like all Smallville scene, like a side of Clark they never saw before. I was hoping they were going to do more as far as Jonathan or Jordan being a superhero, because like at one point they were talking about cutting his hair, and I thought that would actually be, I don't know, because I just thought it would be a cool look, kind of get him to really get in there, following the footsteps of his father. Instead they gave him that dopey like hood and goggles. Wish they would at least made the suit Superman colored. That's another thing I didn't bring up, is everyone was freaking out. There's a kid with powers, or someone with powers in the town. It's like a couple seasons ago, everybody was dropping XK, and they were all getting like, it seemed like half of them were getting superpowers, and everybody got possessed by Kryptonians, and they were flying around. So it seems like it's not that crazy that someone's gonna have superpowers and be flying around the town. We get to like the 5th episode. Lois finally goes to Mannheim's hospital, and it's like seriously like it's her first day there, and she's already like wandered off trying to sneak into like classified areas. It's like you're gonna give a couple days, and in real life. I had a weird feeling about Mateo when that first met him at the party, and then he kind of dropped him for a while, and I just kind of kept feeling something was dirty about him. Technically, nothing was wrong with him, but it turned out he was the Mannheim's kid. I still got to point out, and I think I noticed it around the 6th episode, that poor little sister for like the Lang family just gets nothing to do. Like, I don't know, somebody thought it was a good idea to have an extra kid in the family, and 3 seasons in, it's still like we got nothing for the kid to do. They finally had one episode where she kind of ran away from home, and that was her like big moment. I guess at least the next season she could take the whole season off. And this is kind of interesting. I don't know. It works a little funny. Like apparently, Kryptonite's really bad for Superman. Jordan has powers, so it kind of affects him a little bit, but not as badly. And then just because Jonathan doesn't have any powers, he's not affected at all. But it's like, I don't know, it seems like since they are all still part alien, even if powers or not, it should kind of affect Jonathan a little bit. Another thing I forgot to mention that kind of got dropped, like the previous mayor was talking to Lana, like, you keep your nose out of this, don't look into this, like the finances. Like I felt like that was going to be some kind of connection to Mannheim, like that was going to lead Lana to something important, and there was going to, a shoe was going to drop later on, and then nothing ever happened. They just killed the mayor, and that was the end of it. So I don't know where that was supposed to go. Episode 9 was a nice little episode, kind of showing like the earlier parts of like Clark and Lois's relationship and how it affects today, and I thought it was a good payoff with how they did the thing with the whole dress. I wasn't surprised that Mateo was taken into the DOD to free his mom and give her the cure. It's crazy. Like, all the people that Mannheim was bringing back from the dead, I was kind of surprised he didn't try to bring his wife back. I'm glad they dropped it. I didn't want to see that. I think this story kind of ran its course. Actually, I think that's about it. The last couple episodes, I think I really covered all the important stuff like previously, and just my other rambling portions of this review. But I think that's about everything. I enjoyed the season. Like I said, I love the characters so much. They're so well done. Even when the action and the bad guy stuff doesn't quite pan out, it's still a good show. I just think either you should have did the Luther thing earlier in the season, or not at all, or even just like the finale. That could have been a tease for next season. Not that they knew they were getting it next season for sure. And I said that, and then the Bruno stuff could have been like this all this season. But that's about it. Like I said, I got the mostly spoiler-free-ish version of this up on my blog. I got other reviews up there. I got my comic strips. That's all at soundedbettermyhead.com. So thanks for watching.